the swale situation. We've got our soon-to-be milk cow. It's our Jersey heifer over here. She is due sometime within the next couple of weeks. We hope. We're not exactly sure because we had her AI'd, but we think she cycled after that. But we had a very young bull in the pasture with them. So if the AI took, then she would be due the end of this month. If it did not, then she's due some point after that. But she's definitely pregnant. Anyway, the main swale here, out across our pasture. I'm not sure if we can, there we go. Yeah. So we wanted to do something to help stabilize this. So I planted buckwheat down there at the far end. We had a bunch of tomatoes and green beans and peas that were planted all along here. Not expecting to get much off of them because we have wildlife out here that we're also feeding. But yeah, so far not one bit of water has run off of our field. We've had this swale overflow a couple of times down to the pond right down over there in the right down here. That's the logs across the top of the pond that Samuel and Jessica have arranged to be able to make a bridge. Anyhow, so for our swale, we had a major freeze on June 10th and then a couple of killing frosts June 16th and 17th, the overnights. So we lost most of our tomato plants along here, but as Hannah was suckering the plants out in the garden that are doing extremely well, I took all the suckers down here with the kids. I literally took a digging bar, drove a hole depending on how long the sucker was, anywhere from 6 to 18 inches deep. We just shoved the suckers down in there and let them go. And as you can see, this one here has got a pretty good sized tomato on it. Yeah, they fall over. They just look like they're just about dead, but they root up real quick. Yeah, more here. I've got, yeah, here's another one. I've got a couple hundred of these things running down here. We selectively cut for milkweed, specifically for the butterflies. So we just allow the milkweed to do whatever it's going to do here across the swale area. It has been no measurable rain for over a week now, so I mean, down here in the swale, it's interesting if you get down in here. So about 6 inches below ground level, this is the old grass level, I guess maybe 8 inches down, it's bone dry. Below that, it's actually moist. So from this line right through here, below, the ground is actually moist down in there, even though it's not wet. But things seem to be doing pretty well here. We've got a mulberry tree that I got. Here's a little apple tree that we got. It's growing here. The deer keep eating it down, so it's not doing hardly anything, but I left it. I dug around it when I did the swale. We'll see what it does. It's on the upper side, so it's not an ideal location. Here is our mulberry tree. I don't know how well you can see that in the video. Apparently the Japanese beetles we have issues with love the mulberry. Speaking of Japanese beetles, oh, he's no longer up there. I gave my kids 2 years ago, started paying them a penny a piece for Japanese beetles that they collect into jars with soapy water and kill. Oh, look at some of these tomato plants right here. Wow, these things are loaded. Good size too, look at that. That must, yeah, the way that's right there at the bottom, that looks like one of the ones that had frosted off and then come back. We had a few of them come back. That's a good beefsteak tomato right there. Probably 2.5 inches across. Here's some of our beans. We are actually starting to get beans now, which is pretty amazing considering how much the deer have been after them. They're quite flattened because there's very little water out here. But they have been doing well. Hey, here's these Japanese beetles. Yeah, so he went out this morning, and Samuel has so far collected over $4 worth of Japanese beetles today. At a penny a piece. Oh yeah, look at these tomato plants. This is just beautiful. Yeah, it looks almost like a cherry tomato there. But I've got some goldenrod in here, down on the bottom of this swale. You see, this was actually down through the topsoil layer and into the clay layer. But I knocked off, so after digging the trench with a backhoe, nice and deep, I had it probably 12 to 14 inches deep. I was wanting to stay in the topsoil as much as possible. Took all that, piled it off to the side, and then I went along with a shovel and cut down in here a full shovel's depth all the way along, and then pushed that down into the bottom. So it's not quite into the bottom, but if you see here, so here's the pasture level coming across. It drops down by about 12 inches or so. Has a little bit of a pasture right here in the bottom, and then drops down another 3 or 4 inches. And so this is where most of the water collects, but then it will actually fill this whole area right on up and in. I've been mowing above and below. Since we have the bees in the property now, that seems to be making quite a bit of a difference. Oh, look at this, we got peas growing in there. Doing well. We've got some morning glory down here. But yeah, so this is that's probably 75, 80 feet of buckwheat. I just strew it wide and dumped and ran the harrow over it to break it up and just cut it into the ground. So yeah, this is the update. And it's the pond down there. And yeah. Fortunately / unfortunately, that pond has not overflowed at all this year. I had the overflow swale out the other side, but with this main swale here catching most of the water and spreading it out, it has made a huge difference with no water at all overflowing that pond there. They've regraded the road, and the guy who did it this year he did a really good job. We've had major issues the last 4 or 5 years. This year, he did a really good job. Left my runoff, or at the end of my swales, I actually cut in runoffs into what they were doing there on the road. They had issues with nothing being done with the road this spring because of all the coronavirus layoffs. So I took it upon myself, as I always do, to improve the road and to maintain it. And it just seemed a natural function to continue with taking the cutoffs in. That's about halfway down the slope, and then right down there, right above the pond, is where the other one is. Then down below that little stand of trees right here, down below that is where there's a drain sluice pipe that runs across the road, or under the road. So we're taking 3/4 of the runoff from this hill and collecting it onto our property, which is where we'd rather see it, than the stuff even that comes underneath the road and across our property, used to run right all the way down and run through that sluice pipe and be gone. So I'm very thankful for the opportunities that I had this spring with being around the house more to do some of these labor-intensive but not financially burdensome jobs around. Anyway, this is kind of long, just under 9 minutes. Yikes. Thanks for watching.